Thank you for joining us in Finding God in the world of video games. Today we're going to take a look at the Xbox Games Showcase for 2020. A lot of world premieres. Kind of a bit of just a showcase for the Xbox Game Pass platform, if I'm being honest, but a whole lot of new information on some games that we are anticipating and some games that we haven't really heard a whole lot about. Some brand new announcements, so we'll just kind of get it started with the biggest surprises that we had were from the show that we just saw. So first of all, what was your biggest surprise?
I would say for me it was Halo Infinite having the open world, with all the different environments and the mission structures. It was just very different and not Halo-ish at all. So that was really surprising for me to see that. Very, very different.
Sure. I think that when we think about Halo, you're normally thinking about very cinematic, structured gameplay where you're going kind of from one set piece to another. The music is always very much in line with what's happening. I don't know how that's going to work when the open world environment kicks in and you can kind of go and do whatever you want. See how dynamic the music is with that. It could be really, really cool. It could end up losing kind of what made the single-player campaign kind of special in Halo and always made it feel like you were a character on a mission instead of just kind of a bunch of loosely guided things. I'll tell you my biggest surprise, honestly, was the Fable announcement. I've been looking forward to hearing about Fable for a very, very long time. It wasn't really much of a reveal. It was kind of just a teaser for it, but this is the same team that's brought us Forza Horizon very faithfully over the last few games that they've come out with. So obviously a great track record of incredible visuals, and fortunately it looks like Fable's going back to its original medieval stylings instead of kind of the steampunk where it kind of lost its momentum with Fable 3. All right, so what would you say? There's a lot of new games that were just. What was the most interesting brand new franchise that you saw?
I mean, for me, I would probably say it was Grounded by Obsidian. It was kind of a mashup between Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and an open world survivor game, and it kind of felt very different. I was laughing pretty much the whole time during the trailer for it, so that was definitely really interesting and different for me as well. So I'm kind of excited about that one to see where that's going to go.
Obsidian, honestly, for me, they kind of stole the show. Not only did they show that very unique and interesting game, but I would also say Avowed looked incredible. I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan myself, mostly the Oblivion and Skyrim series, not so much the online, but Avowed looked like it's a very worthy successor to that. Obsidian, for me, they were kind of best in show around this, and I was also just as kind of maybe a runner-up. Rare showed that new game Everwild, very unique. I really like the art styling. I think that kind of the way that they're imagining that game, we might finally see what Rare is able to do when they're not busy making crappy Kinect games or Banjo-Kazooie kart racing games that nobody asked for. So speaking of things that people didn't ask for, now we're going to look at what the most disappointing aspects of this. And there's going to be a few, but what would you say if you had to look at this entire thing from start to finish? What were you most disappointed by?
Honestly, that's not even a thinker for me. I was most disappointed in Halo Infinite's graphics. And I'm not a weird graphic person by any means, but it just felt like it was taking a step back instead of a step forward in its graphics. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. For me, I would say immediately following what was not an incredibly attractive Halo Infinite reveal with a very slick, well-produced in-game Forza footage, it was like night and day between the two of them. Infinite definitely looked like it's a long ways away from being ready, and yet it's supposed to be ready for holiday 2020. I'm kind of thinking they led with that, assuming that we're all going to be very excited, and the rendering of a lot of those models was Halo Reach-esque, in my opinion. It didn't even look like it was on par with Halo 5.
Halo 5 looked much better.
Now, keep in mind, Halo Infinite, they are going to have to sacrifice a little bit in the graphics department to make up for the fact that this thing is running 60 frames per second in 4K, and what we saw was not running in 4K, obviously, so hopefully, with the next several months, as well as that this will be a 4K game, it's going to run blistering fast. Those things will hopefully offset some of that. But for me, the biggest disappointment was we didn't get any of the real tangible information I think we were all hoping for. We didn't get a release date. We didn't get a price. We didn't find out how this little refrigerator is supposed to fit into our console. So we didn't get some answers to some questions that I was greatly looking forward to, or even hints about where we were going. And when I think about my biggest takeaway from this, it's going to be that Microsoft is still kind of keeping us in the dark with only a few months left to go on the biggest questions we have around their console that remains. What are we going to be able to play at launch? How much is it going to cost us? And what day are we going to be able to potentially pick this up or even at least begin pre-ordering it? So we're kind of blindly walking in faith to a certain extent towards Microsoft's eventual launch. We'll probably be there when it happens, but it would be reassuring to know exactly when that's going to happen. And a lot of times our walk with Christ is very much the same way. It would be nice if we were able to know where different things were going to happen in our destiny and at what time. And we don't usually get the luxury of that either. If I think about when God talks about following him, I think about Psalms 119, 105. And most people are probably somewhat familiar with this verse. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. I think everyone's heard that at some point. If you've been to a church at all, there's songs and such about it. But you know what's interesting? The Hebrew word that's used there for lamp is near, okay, N-E-E-R. And that is translated as lamp. It's just lamp. It's exactly what you think it is. There's not some funny, oh, wow, that's so deep. No, it's really just lamp. But you have to think about a lamp back in the Bible days' time. It's not like they had these fluorescent lights and such. When you think of a lamp back then, it was very much a candle experience. You're talking about maybe something on par with like a lantern or typically, a candlestick, maybe on a pole or something that was capable of lighting a small amount of space. But this is by no means some giant searchlight. This is not going to be some light tower where you're able to see miles into the distance. This is going to give you just enough light to make the next several steps that you need to. And that's oftentimes the way that our walk with God works. The best example I think I can have for that is Daniel. And Daniel experienced this multiple times, but the one that really sticks out to me is Daniel chapter 6. Which, and most people are familiar with the story of Daniel and the lion's den. That's one that, if you've ever been to Sunday school, you probably heard that one at some point. As a matter of fact, just talking about going into the lion's den is kind of in the modern vernacular, staring into the mouth of a lion. That all kind of has its background in this story from Daniel. So Daniel was in a position where he had been told, and it was a setup, it was a political setup, he was not allowed to pray to God. He was not allowed to pray to anyone but the king. No one in the kingdom was. This was an incredibly stupid law that was created by his enemies because they knew he wouldn't be able to forego prayer. He decided he was going to do this anyway. But I want to make sure that you understand that at no point in his prayers did God say, they're going to try to feed you to lions, but don't worry, it's cool. I'm going to get you out. He didn't even mention anything about what would happen to Daniel if he decided to follow through with this. He just chose to pray because that's what Daniel does. That's what he had done. It was his habit. He didn't start doing it then. That had always been what he had done. So Daniel prays. They catch him, and they're throwing him into this den of lions. And you've got to think Daniel probably would have felt a lot better if God had came to him and said, hey, don't worry, an angel's going to come, and he's going to protect you. You're going to be all right. Don't worry, I got you. That never happened. That call never came. Daniel went marching to these lions, pretty much planning to be, a snack for them, an old man snack at this point. And when he got in there, that's when an angel met him, and that's when he got the answer. That light that he was being given only guided him to the next step. You need to pray. And then from there, you're going to follow through with what the king tells you to do. You're going to face that judgment. And then you're going to go in there. You're going to face these hungry lions. And you're going to come out. And you're going to be just fine. Each step of the way, he was provided for. But he wasn't given 3 steps in advance, 5 steps in advance. He wasn't given the release date for when he'd get out of the lion's den. They could have just not been hungry right then. And he'd been like, oh, great, and then God didn't save him. He gets eaten 10 minutes later or something. No, he went in there having no idea how long he would be in or what the end result would be. And then at the end of that, when he was let out, it was a huge testimony to that king, to all the people in the kingdom, that this was the one true God. And he got there by having that one step in front of the other kind of mentality. God didn't give him the whole plan. God didn't tell him. He didn't even guarantee him he was going to survive this. He simply told him, just continue to walk faithfully with me. It kind of reminds me in Luke 12 when Jesus is talking to his followers and he's getting ready to send them, and he says, don't worry about how or what you should answer or what you should say. The Holy Spirit will tell you in that very hour what you ought to say. Now, I would like to get all that information in advance. I would love to be able to say, all right, well, a week out, Lord, will you just give me some idea of where we're going to go with things? It's not how he works. It's not how a faith walk works. It's a step-by-step, lighting each individual step on your pathway walk that we have with God. It's kind of what Microsoft is doing here. I don't particularly appreciate it, but that is...
I don't think anyone does.
that's unfortunately, that's where we're going to be at with them until the time for their next reveal. And at this point, we've got a matter of months until it's supposed to be out. Hopefully that next time will be the one. Either way, we're going to end up being there as quickly to the front of the line as we can to get our Xbox One or Xbox Series X and probably Halo Infinite.
Oh yeah.
And a couple
Collector's
controllers.
Edition.
Yes, we'll be there. Even though right now they haven't given us much to have confidence in, but we will get there. And when we do, it will be worth it in the end. Maybe not immediately, maybe 18 patches later, but it'll be worth it. And the same thing goes with our walk with God. He's not going to give you that long-term destiny. You say, well, God, when am I going to meet the person I'm supposed to be with? Well, he's not going to say, I want you to be here on September 21st. He's gonna tell you, well, pray and walk with me. And today we're going to go here. Today we're going to go there. And eventually, there you are, and you're at a Starbucks, and there that person is. You can't really tell who they are because they're wearing a mask right now. But you're going to say, oh, wow, well, that's how I got there, by walking faithfully step by step, not by getting the whole thing in advance. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll get there when we get there, is the message that we got from the game showcase today. So hopefully we'll see you in line for Halo Infinite and picking up your Series X. But more importantly than that, remember that as you walk through your walk of faith with the Lord, he is going to illuminate your path one step at a time.